in 182 days.
And the story goes
It's all for this. One night, one game in October. No more 10-game road trips. No more 3-game sets. No more tomorrow. There's only this moment. The immediacy of Game 7 in an instant, where one pitch can constitute a slump and one swing a streak. October is all about the moments. For the Giants and Pirates, that moment is here.
What a scene here at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. The host side of the National League wildcard game for the second year in a row, and they are just as fired up tonight as they were last season when the Pirates defeated Cincinnati and advanced on to the National League Division Series. Hi, everybody, and welcome to as loud a ballpark as there is in baseball. Dan Shulman, John Kruk will be joined soon by Buster Olney and Tim Kirkchin. We've got the Giants and we've got the Pirates. The Giants had an up-and-down season, great record for the first couple of months, swooned, got better, and then did not finish all that well. They did not score very many runs at all in the month of September. Of course, they were without Angel Pagan. He's out, back surgery, his season is done. Sandoval and Pence struggled down the stretch to varying degrees for the Giants. They were really carried at times by Buster Posey, the former MVP a couple of years ago in the National League, and a guy who they know has to come up big for them in the postseason.
Well, absolutely, Dan, because you still don't know what Sandoval and Pence are going to bring. Bruce Bochy thinks the 2 days off is going to help them, but he also thinks the 2 days off prior to this wild card game is going to help Buster Posey. And if he can be any better than he was in September in this game, Pirates are in trouble.
The Pirates have had a good offensive season, fourth in the National League in runs scored, and they are led, as always, by the reigning NL MVP, Andrew McCutchen.
Nothing on a baseball field he can't do. He can run, he can hit. He's a Gold Glove caliber defender. Hits for power too. And if you're the San Francisco Giants, this is the guy you have to be careful with in this lineup. Although others are having great seasons, he's a guy that can beat you with one swing.
The Giants have their best on the mound tonight, the big left-hander, Madison Bumgarner, a guy who's had an outstanding season, won 18 games, and he's the horse. He's the easy choice for Bruce Bochy in this game. The Giants are getting ready to take the field. The Pirates, rather, getting ready to take the field. Edinson Volquez will be their starting pitcher tonight. A lot of discussion about that here in Pittsburgh with Garrett Cole going on Sunday. They still had a mathematical chance to win the division, so Clint Hurdle went with Cole then. Volquez tonight. Bruce Bochy had an easy decision. Madison Bumgarner was the obvious choice. 25 years of age. This will already be his 7th career postseason start, including a couple of great ones in the World Series.
Yeah, a couple of great ones in the World Series, and Bruce Bochy couldn't ask for a better guy to throw out there on the mound. He is one of the most laid-back guys in the game of baseball, Dan, and I think he's going to handle his atmosphere in Pittsburgh very well.
As low-key as Bumgarner is as upbeat and emotional sometimes as Edinson Volquez can be. Does that work for him or against him?
Well, it can work against him if he's overhyped and overthrowing, because he does rely on a sinker and a slider. And if he elevates those pitches because he's overhyped early in the game, Giants might take advantage of it, try to score some runs early.
Of course, all hands on deck for both teams as the Pirates get ready to take the field. For more on the pitching matchup, we'll start on the Giants side of the field tonight, send you down to field level with Buster Olney.
Dan, as you mentioned, so much went wrong for the San Francisco Giants down the stretch, losing their division to the Dodgers, losing Angel Pagan, and that they come in here with incredible confidence because of the guy on the mound, Madison Bumgarner. Not only is he one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, 2.29 ERA in the second half, but he's known among teammates as being absolutely unflappable. When he was asked about this crazy crowd here in Pittsburgh, he said with his North Carolina drawl That'll just make it more fun. Tim?
Edinson Volquez has had an amazing journey the last year for the Pirates. He was released last September by the Padres. He signed with the Pirates, had a terrible spring training, made the club as the 5th starter, figured it out this summer, and now in his last 17 starts, he's got a 1.85 ERA, and his last 18 innings have been scoreless. Dan, back to you.
All right, Tim, thank you. Moments away from first pitch here for the National League wild card game, and sending a shout out to our buddy and our colleague Kurt Schilling, who is not able to be with us tonight, has some minor throat discomfort, a part of his ongoing recovery, but he is tweeting. And Garrick38 says, win or go home, by far the most fun you can ever have as a pitcher. Our friend Schill loved the big moment, loved to pitch in a game like this. Edinson Volquez has only pitched in one previous postseason game. It did not go well. He did not get out of the second inning. That was as a red against the Phillies in the game where Roy Halladay no-hit Cincinnati. This is just his second postseason start.
Yeah, and that's the concern is yes, he is hot coming down the stretch. His last 12 starts, an ERA under 2. But the thing you concern yourself with is the overhype, because even Clint Hurdle said he could be an emotional pitcher, and if he's too emotional, elevating, it could be, watch for the Giants try to take advantage of that early.
Gregor Blanco will lead it off for the Giants tonight. And everyone pumped up, to say the least. It's a blackout here in Pittsburgh tonight. The Pirates setting a record for attendance this year, hosting this game for the second year in a row, making the playoffs for the second year in a row. And listen to this ballpark. Blanco ready, Volquez ready, and we are underway. Oh! Ball one, says Brian Gorman, the home plate umpire. Blanco in center and in the leadoff spot for the injured Angel Pagan, who missed a big stretch of time, middle of the season with a back problem, came back and then had a recurrence of the issue, underwent surgery. 1 ball, 1 strike on Blanco. What are the Giants missing without Pagan?
Well, they're missing that catalyst, that guy that their leader in the lineup that gets on base, scores runs for him, and when you miss that guy, that spark in your lineup, sometimes it makes other guys press and try to do too much.
Off speed and in there, 1-2. Volquez entering the game tonight on an 18-inning scoreless streak. Had a great second half, 13-7, 304 on the season. Breaking ball high. Russell Martin behind the plate for the Pirates tonight, nursing some tenderness, some tightness in his hamstring, which has bothered him on and off throughout the course of what has been an exceptional season for him. A good season offensively, and acknowledged as the quarterback and the leader of this pitching staff, the job he's done with the pitchers. Right center field, deep, playable, McCutchen.
This is your concern, Dan, with Edinson Volquez. The first pitch of the at-bat up in the zone, and this is a changeup. If you remember in last night's game, James Shields threw a changeup that stayed about right there to Moss. Moss hits the home run. Blanco just missed this one. This is a sign you have to watch for early with Volquez.
Now Joe Panik, the second baseman. Marco Scutaro injured early this year, never really could get going. The Giants tried a number of other players before settling on Panik, who hit over 300 for them on the season. Hits a slow roller to second, 2 down. And now Buster Posey. We've got the 2012 MVP in the batter's box for the Giants. We've got the 2013 National League MVP out in center field for the Pirates, and both of them will get some votes this year. McCutchen, I mean, he still could win it. Kershaw might be the front runner, but McCutchen, in many ways, had maybe even a better season this year than last year. Posey had a great season as well, and lines it to McCutchen, the sliding catch to end the inning. ESPN's coverage of the National League wildcard game is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. And Voya Financial, changing the way you think of retirement. Dan Shulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney, Tim Kirchin back for the bottom of the first here at a beautiful PNC Park. A great night for a ball game. The Giants go in order in the top of the first here in the NL wildcard game. And now Madison Bumgarner, an 18-game winner during the season, gets set to take on Clint Hurdle's Pittsburgh Pirates. A good offensive team during the regular season. Top 4 in the league in batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage. And they got hot late when they needed to, winning 17 of their last 23 and heading to the postseason for the second year in a row. And how about Josh Harrison? He plays everywhere. He has solidified himself as the leadoff hitter, and he finished second in the National League to Justin Morneau in batting during the season, a .315 average. Incidentally, Andrew McCutchen finished third. Buster Posey was fourth. Tell us about the big left-hander.
Well, he's not scared, Dan, and that's the big thing. Coming into a game like this, he's better on the road as he is at home. And the thing about Madison Bumgarner is he's unemotional. There's not going to be a lot that distracts him. Remember last year, the Johnny Cueto dropping the ball, and the Pirates fans were all over Johnny Cueto. Not sure that's going to bother Madison Bumgarner.
Bumgarner with a lot of postseason experience. We mentioned he's made 2 World Series starts, one in 2010, one in 2012. Did not give up a run in either one of them. Overall, 3-2 with a .379 ERA in the postseason. And he starts Harrison with a strike. We had a chance to visit with Harrison before the game. This is a guy who last year was up and down from the minors to the Pirates on a number of occasions. In the postseason, he did not get a single at bat in their 6 postseason games a year ago. He pinch ran twice. It's a fly ball toward the right field corner. Pence racing and makes the catch just in fair territory down the line to retire Harrison. Hey, in a playoff game, do you like getting the ball hit to you early, kind of get some of the butterflies out of the way?
Yes, very much so. And, Hunter Pence has to think this is a piece of cake because of the outfield wall in San Francisco. And you see Bumgarner right there. He knows how big it is to keep Josh Harrison off the bases. And Hunter Pence with the little tongue wag there.
Here's Jordy Mercer, the shortstop. Mercer was one of 9 different Pirates to have double-figure home runs during the season. He had 12, also had 27 doubles. This lineup has some pop. A routine two-hopper to Brandon Crawford at short, and just like that, 2 down, which will bring up the reigning National League MVP, Andrew McCutchen. In spite of missing a couple of weeks with a fractured rib in late August, he had another magnificent season. And he is slightly popular here in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he truly is. And then, we talked about the 2 days helping Pence and Sandoval and Posey, rest those legs. How about the 2 days off that McCutchen had to rest the rib?
Fastball high at 94. Bumgarner he's a big guy, about 6'5", 230, but has a bit of a slingshot motion, and he'll use that high fastball a lot. It's a lot of swings and misses on his four-seamer. Now takes just a little bit off, and McCutchen swings through it 1-1.
Yeah, he'll throw that fastball up. He'll throw that cutter in on the hands of right-handed pitchers, and he can backdoor his breaking ball and changeup.
Popped him up right side, and this will be out of play. 1-2. Bumgarner's had some trouble in first innings of games this year. An ERA over 5 in the first inning. He's allowed 8 home runs in the first inning of games this year, but so far so good. 2 up, 2 down, and ahead of McCutchen. And he got him on a swing and a miss on a breaking ball in the dirt. McCutchen strikes out, and we're scoreless at the end of 1. Pablo Sandoval, Hunter Pence, the first 2 hitters coming up for the Giants. Beautiful night here in Pittsburgh, the Clemente Bridge, Crucky, the Allegheny River.
Yeah.
I spent all day practicing learning which one was which. No scores. We go to the top of the second here in the National League wildcard game. Edinson Volquez on the mound for the Pirates. And Schill's tweeting again, says, ignore the velocity. Watch Russell Martin set up and where he reaches to catch the ball. Because the command, at times when Volquez has struggled, it is normally with missing his spots and lacking command. And then Schill has warned us he's going to be a tweeting fool tonight, it sounds like.
That have no sounds. I mean, he can't hear us or he refuses to listen to us.
Probably number two.
Yeah,
I would think.
That's my guess.
Glad he's along. We go to the second. 4-5-6. Pablo Sandoval, Hunter Pence, Brandon Belt. The Panda hit 279, 16 home runs, 73 driven in on the season. Scuffled late, hitting from his stronger side. Good numbers against Volquez in his career. And a rarity as he takes a pitch, as you probably know, nobody swings more often than Pablo Sandoval. He swings at 58% of the pitches he sees. Swing at that one, and as Volquez moves him off the plate, the Pirates have a reputation for throwing inside and moving hitters back about as much as any team in baseball.
But you know, when you talk to Kurt Schilling, it's, you know, if you're going to miss in. Don't miss away over the plate if you're trying to go in. And Volquez right there didn't miss in, but got Pablo's attention.
Sent foul down the left side, 1-2. Sandoval, of course, has had some very big moments in the postseason. He was the MVP of the World Series 2 years ago. Remember the enormous game, the 3-home run game in Game 1 of the World Series against the Tigers back in 2012. They play him to pull, not a full shift, but definitely play him to pull on the infield. Slightly the other way on the outfield. Winner take all. Survive and advance. The winner gets the Washington Nationals in a National League Division Series that will begin on Friday.
That's probably the oddest shift we've ever seen. It looks like Josh Harrison's really the only one shifted. I mean, Jordy Mercer's up the middle a little bit, playing a left-handed pull hitter, but breaking ball pulled foul. We showed the shift in the infield, and we saw Josh Harrison playing basically shortstop. But look where Starling Marte's playing. I mean, he's playing like Pablo Sandoval's a dead pull right-handed hitter.
Yep.
I mean, he's guarding the line, no doubles.
Let's go Bucks. The cheer you're hearing here in Pittsburgh. And Sandoval finds a hole with a base hit into right center.
Bruce Bochy told us in the meeting that Pablo Sandoval last couple games against San Diego had put together some pretty good at bats. But you know, here's what he's looking at with Alvarez, with Volquez. He takes the first pitch strike, then that up and in pitch, then a breaking ball away, tries to go the other way again. Volquez trying to get him to chase up in the zone. That cutter slider right there inside that he tried to get in and get Pablo to jam himself, and then a good piece of hitting. The guy not trying to do too much with it. Get on base, be that leadoff hitter out of the fourth hole.
And here's a huge key for the Giants. Hunter Pence swings at the first pitch, broken about liner to short. Pence for about 5 months had a great season, but finished the year 1 for his last 28, 2 for his last 41. He can be the energy in the engine that makes the Giants go, and in the absence of Pagan, they need that.
Yeah, they definitely do need that. But, you know, the thing with Hunter Pence is he's a free swinger like Pablo Sandoval, and that's what you can do to him. Volquez runs that two-seamer in on his hand, jams him with the first pitch of the at-bat. You know, not a quality at-bat right there for Hunter Pence.
And now Brandon Belt, the first baseman. Belt first pitch swinging. Pops it up left side. Harrison racing down the line. Juggled and cannot make the catch. A great effort as Harrison went Boy, had to be 100 feet down the left field line, but just could not come up with it cleanly. Listen to the ovation he gets there.
A great ovation and well-deserved, but this is what Josh Harrison brings to your team. All-out hustle, never giving up on that ball, and really, I bet if you ask him after the game, probably a ball he thought he should catch right here. It hits on the heel of his glove. He kind of overran it. Still would have been a spectacular play.
This is a guy who's played all over the field for the Pirates wherever they have needed him. He has settled in the last couple of months as the everyday third baseman after the throwing issues and then the injury to Pedro Alvarez. And he gives the Pirates energy like Pence gives the Giants energy. Belt, meanwhile, missed more than half of the season due to a concussion and a thumb injury. Thumb first, concussion later. But he has swung the bat well recently. He finished the year 8 for his last 17. And this is a guy with some pop. When he's on, he can hurt you. Breaking ball down and in.
Belt got off to such a great start, hitting for power, hitting for average, and then the thumb injury and the concussion kind of sidelined that. But like you said, Dan, if this is a guy, if he gets hot, power-wise, this is another big weapon for Bruce Bochy and his Giants offense.
Two and two. Volquez misses very high at 95 miles an hour. The stuff has never been the issue. The arm was always electric, but he would struggle with his emotions, his tempo, his command, but he seemed to put it all together in the second half of this season. And that is a foul ball. What did you think of the decision, much discussed here in Pittsburgh, to start Garrett Cole on Sunday when they were still mathematically alive to win the division and have Volquez be the guy tonight?
Well, I love the decision by Clint Hurdle because you had a chance. I mean, you had a chance to not have to play in this game, and if you have that chance, you have to take it. And look, Garrett Cole's a great pitcher, but the way Volquez is pitching, it's not like it's, Clayton Kershaw and Dan Herron type of thing where Clayton Kershaw is so much better than Dan Herron. You had to make a choice. Pirates have options as far as number one goes. Liriano's been pitching pretty good. Garrett Cole, of course, and now Volquez. But he had options. Clint Hurdle didn't. He went for it. And if you're a player on the team, you got to love it.
Missed outside, full count. And a ballpark full of umpires disagrees.
Again, that's another pitch that Volquez, you see where Russell Martin looked where he wanted it down and in on Brandon Belt. Instead, it stays away, and that's when pitchers get hurt, but good eye by Belt.
And it's ball four. The Giants with 2 men on and only 1 out. Major League Baseball's postseason continues tomorrow as the American League Division Series begins on TBS. It'll be the Tigers and Orioles at 5:30 Eastern, and then the Royals, fresh off that incredible win last night over Oakland, heading to Anaheim to take on the Angels. Friday, it's time for the National League Division Series to begin on Fox Sports 1. The winner of this game in Washington, and then the Cardinals and the Dodgers. And don't forget, each and every game of the postseason can be heard on ESPN Radio. 2 on, 1 out, no score, and the batter is the shortstop, Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, and Hunter Pence swung at the first pitch. Brandon Crawford, even though it was a 3-2 count to Brandon Belt, the last couple pitches have missed pretty badly for Edinson Volquez. You can't go up there looking for a breaking ball and swing at it in the dirt. This could be the game right here, and you just gave him a strike.
This ball is hit on a line, but right to right field and right at Travis Snyder for out number 2. And that'll bring up Travis Ishikawa. He's had quite an interesting season. Began the year as the opening day first baseman for the Pirates, and now finds himself in left field for the Giants. This is his 4th major league start in left field. He's a first baseman, but Blanco had to move because of Pagan's injury, and Morse is hurt, and they tried Juan Perez and Chris Dominguez and others, and they finally settled on Ishikawa, hoping he can provide some punch and hoping he can handle his own out in left field, which, by the way, is the biggest left field in all of baseball. Out of play.
Yeah, but when you talk to Bruce Bochy, he was very comfortable with putting him out there, and when asked, when do you look for defensive replacement, what inning do you look for, and he really said, I don't know if I'm going to have to. I love the way he tracks the ball, he said, and runs his routes well. This is a different animal than game 158. Yep.
And under his hands, a ball and a strike. Volquez had a quick first inning, has given up a base hit and a walk, and has had some deeper counts here in the second inning.
Well, the thing you see with Volquez early in this game, Dan, is the fact that he has no command, but yet the Giants are hitting balls hard, but right at Pirates outfielders.
Fouled back, 1-2. First strikeout of the night for Volquez, and it's a big one as he strands a couple of runners in the top of the second. Welcome back to the 2014 National League Wild Card game on ESPN. PNC Park is our spot tonight, and it is alive. No score, bottom of the second. Catcher Russell Martin leads it off. Martin, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, bothered by some tightness in his left hamstring. Missed a couple of games recently. Spent some time on the DL earlier this season because of it. Had a very productive offensive season and an even better defensive season. And rolls one up the middle for a base hit.
Bruce Bochy told us he'd like to see Russell Martin run and see how that hamstring is, and you can see the start, not limping noticeably, but didn't have to really run hard, a routine single, and I'm sure Clint Hurdle doesn't want him to have to overextend himself.
Guy's pretty good in wild card games. Remember last year against Cincinnati, he hit 2 home runs in this game, leading the Pirates to a 6-2 win. He's aboard to lead off the second. Crowd in a frenzy at PNC, and the batter is Starling Marte, the left fielder. Center field, deep, but Blanco has room and makes the catch. Martin goes about 35-40 feet towards second and then backtracks to first. This is a pitcher's park. It's big in left field. You got to hit it pretty well to center, left center, or left field to get it out of here.
Yes, you do, and that's what's surprising to me. But that Madison Bumgarner, not that he's pitched well on the road, that he hasn't pitched great, is not as good at home in that big ballpark there. But yeah, that's just smart pitch. If you're going to hit it out to left or dead center, the biggest part of the ballpark. Madison Bumgarner has that kind of command that he can pitch to that.
Martin at first, one down. Bumgarner now to face Neil Walker, the switch-hitting second baseman. Walker hit 23 home runs during the season, tied with Brian Dozier of Minnesota for the most home runs by any second baseman in baseball. He's a better hitter from the left side, but the right side has come along, more productive this year. A guy who seems like he's been in Pittsburgh forever. Martin, the lead, when healthy, runs very well for a catcher as he draws a throw.
Wasn't Neil Walker born here in Pittsburgh? Like, he might have been here forever. I think that's a smart thing by Bumgarner. Make Russell Martin move around, throw over, even though you don't think he's going to steal, just throw over and make him overextend that, try to overextend that hamstring.
0-2 on Walker. Bumgarner is working on 7 days rest, so 3 extra days of rest coming into this start tonight. Last pitched a week ago yesterday, last Tuesday at Dodger Stadium. Strike 3, and Walker knew it.
You wonder what Neil Walker might be looking for here. 0-2 fastball, pretty much center cut, thigh high, middle of the plate. Apparently he thought that cutter was coming, going to run in off the plate and try to jam him. Getting fooled on a fastball in a 0-2 count.
Second strikeout of the night for Bumgarner with 2 down. Here's Gabby Sanchez getting a start at first base to get another right-handed bat in there against Bumgarner. Mike Davis, the left-handed bat at first base. Sanchez hit 229, 7 home runs during the season. Both teams finishing the regular season with identical 88 and 74 records. So even if it were the old, somewhat not that old, but the old 1 wild card system, these two would have been playing. Same thing.
Except 2 days earlier.
Except a couple of days earlier. That's right. They got a chance to rest a little bit. Bruce Bochy was glad to get some of his regulars some rest. But the Giants have some more even year magic in them after winning the World Series in 2010 and 2012.
2 outs, and they're kind of paying a lot of attention to Russell Martin. You said it, Dan. Runs pretty well for a catcher, but you wonder if he's feeling that good that he risks it.
A high fly ball, a pop-up really into shallow right center field. Who wants it? And it will be Panic making the catch as he almost got upended by Pence. But he makes the catch, and that ends the inning. Bumgarner, like Volquez, 2 shutout innings in the books. Back here in Pittsburgh, where the noise in this ballpark already may have had an impact, and the Giants fortunate to make a play and not have a collision.
Yeah, and this is something that could cause you to win or lose a game. You see Joe Panic going back. He's not saying anything. Hunter Pence coming in. He is saying, I got it, but it doesn't matter because Panic, there's no way he could hear Buster Posey coming from that far, hear him calling that ball, so Panic just went after it. And you see him, they're talking about it right now. Panic's like, I just keep going back till I hear something. But if you don't hear anything, you just keep going. That's when your infielder has to use hand signals, wave his arms. That way it'll tell the outfielder, back off.
No score, top 3. Volquez to face Madison Bumgarner, a terrific hitter. 4 home runs, 15 RBIs during the season. Down to Buster.
Guys, Roberto Kelly just confirmed to me exactly what you were talking about. He said it's really hard for those guys to hear out there. He talked about how this could be an issue in this game.
When the Giants were up an inning ago and Pablo Sandoval was at second, your old teammate Tim Flannery, the third base coach for the Giants, was trying to yell something to Sandoval, cupping his hands around his mouth, moving as close to the foul line as he could. And there was no shot. I mean, there was no chance that Sandoval could hear him from over 90 feet away. As Bumgarner fights it off, a one-hopper out to Walker, 1 down.
Well, Dan, another issue is Travis Ishikawa in left field. I mean, this is where you have to trust the outfielders to take your eye off the ball while you're tracking it and look at your other outfielder. Ishikawa, of course, looking at the center fielder, Gregor Blanco, or the infielders coming back on balls. If he's not comfortable with that, you might see a collision in left field, too. That could hurt the Giants.
Back to the top of the order now for Blanco, who just missed one. Hit it about 385 feet to right center. Caught by McCutchen at the beginning of the ball game. Blanco shows bunt, and he takes outside ball one, and the Pirates were expecting it. Harrison was in on the grass, and Sanchez was creeping in as well.
Yeah, well, Josh Harrison told us he might play in a little bit closer with guys who might bunt just to try to take Russell Martin out of the equation, not have him have to jump out and try to field a bunt play, and he can get it himself and save Russell Martin's legs.
2-0.
But they have to be pretty confident putting him in the 4th spot behind Andrew McCutchen, knowing that your backup catcher Chris Stewart is not a great offensive player, and if he has to come in and take over for Russell Martin, McCutchen will get nothing to hit.
Another bouncer to the right side. 2 down. Tomorrow night at 10:30 Eastern Time, a Pac-12 showdown for you. Arizona taking on number 2 Oregon. Tomorrow at 10:30 Eastern on ESPN and watch ESPN. Dan Shulman, John Kruk, Tim Kirchin, Buster Olney. The National League wild card game here at PNC Park, where the Pirate Parrot and everybody else here in this jam-packed stadium is fired up for tonight. It's not like they got complacent or anything after this team made the postseason last year. Remember, they had the long stretch of sub-500 seasons, had not been in the playoffs since 1992, and then made it last year, won this game, beat Cincinnati, took the Cardinals to the limit to 5 in the division series. As Panic lines went into center field, a base hit, a 2-out single. The second hit of the night for the Giants. So an opportunity with a man aboard for Buster Posey. Posey also dealing with a little bit of discomfort in recent days. Had some back stiffness, cost him a couple of days. So he enjoyed the 2 days off, no doubt. And in August and September, he was about as productive a hitter as there was in baseball. Breaking ball for a strike.
But again, Volquez missing his location. That's the last place you want to throw a breaking ball, is hanging over the plate, middle in.
Panic did not have a stolen base during the regular season. What he does is put the bat on the ball, use the whole field, find holes, not a ton of power, not a ton of speed. But boy, was Bruce Bochy happy to find a solution at second base after all the issues they had in the first half of the season. Fly ball to right field. Inning over. To the bottom of the third, no score. 8-9-1. Josh Harrison, the leadoff hitter, due up third for the Pirates. Well, if you ask baseball fans about what are the nicest ballparks to go see a game at, you might get more mentions for these two teams' parks than any other.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
I think they're my 1 and 2. I mean, anytime you can get on a boat with a fire pit, the dog running around.
I'm a little worried we might lose you, that you just might up and leave and do the game from there.
They're checking us out. Of course. Yeah, a bunch of dogs in there, yeah. Nice fire pit. You got the jeans on, the bare feet. I mean, that's potent.
The batter is Travis Snider, the Pirates' right fielder, left-handed batter. Hit lefties very well this year, limited at bats, mind you, but there it is, 381, 16 for 42. Legit power. Remember, Gregory Polanco, the phenom, came up from the minors, hit very well for a couple of weeks, but then cooled off, so he's now been relegated to the bench, and Snider finds himself back in the lineup. They also have Jose Tabata, that was kind of a rotating cast at times out in right field. And that's one thing the Pirates have done well this year. When somebody's struggled or somebody's gotten hurt, they have had the depth to fill in and replace them. And Bumgarner gets him. Third strikeout of the night for the big lefty.
Well, Snider hits lefties good, but not many lefties are as good as Madison Bumgarner. And this is what you're facing as a left-handed hitter. He has a little bit of a crossfire like Jared Weaver. A low three-quarter delivery. Look at everything's coming at you right there. The long stride, but then the power right there with the three-quarter delivery. Hard to pick up. I would imagine as a left-handed hitter it'd be difficult to pick up. And righties don't seem to pick it up that well either, especially right-hand hitting pitchers.
25 years old, 67 wins already. Great years in the regular season, success in the postseason. Pounding the strike zone, pitch count is low. As Volquez, who is not a good hitter, 2 for 53 during the season, flies out to right field. 2 down. Josh Harrison coming up, and we send it to Tim Kirkjian.
Yes, Dan, Josh Harrison has had an amazing transformation from utility guy to now everyday third baseman, leadoff guy, and the complete spark plug of this team. He traced his success back to when he was a kid with 2 older brothers who made him work for everything that he did, and a very supportive but demanding father. He told me after one of his high school basketball games, he came home and his dad finally missed a game and said, "How'd you do?" And Josh said, "I had a great night. I had 20 points, 5 assists." And his dad said, "How many turnovers do you have?" And he said, "Well, I had 5 turnovers." And his dad just looked at him like, "All right, we're going to have to do better than that." And that's Josh Harrison, always trying to get better.
All right, Jim, thank you. 2 down, nobody on for Harrison here in the bottom of the third. One of the nicknames he had as a kid was Magic Feet. One of his brothers gave him that nickname. And if you remember the 2 rundowns that Josh Harrison got into and got out of this year, he certainly had magic feet, among other tricks, to get out of them.
And Dan, there's no coincidence that this pitching staff started taking off when he moved to third base to solidify that defense at third base, and then moved into that leadoff spot to help these Pirates score runs.
Pedro Alvarez, of course, was the incumbent at third, but he committed 25 errors this year. Most of them, almost all of them, in fact, throwing errors. And eventually they just couldn't play him out there anymore. And then he got hurt as well. Neil Walker underwent an appendectomy. Harrison played second. Starling Marte had a concussion. Harrison played left. Harrison played short. Harrison played right. And now, with Alvarez not in the lineup, Harrison the last couple of months taking over as the third baseman. He was a shortstop as a kid. He's more of an infielder than an outfielder. And at 5'8", 200 pounds, he doesn't look like your prototypical baseball player, really your prototypical leadoff hitter. Clint Hurdle talks about the great job he's done hitting with runners in scoring position. They actually kind of liked him down in the order to drive in runs, but they need a leadoff hitter, and he's done a great job there. Chases. Posey up with it. And the inning is over. Bumgarner on a roll. Through 3, we are still scoreless. Welcome back to PNC Park, the home of the Pirates. We go to the top of the fourth inning. No score here in the National League wild card game. The Pirates hosting the Giants. Pablo Sandoval will lead it off for San Francisco. Had a base hit his first time up. One of 2 hits the Giants have off Edinson Volquez so far. He's also walked a batter, struck out a batter. And it's ball 1 to Sandoval. The infield alignment the same for the Pirates as it was his first time up when Sandoval snuck one just to the right of Neil Walker out at second base into right center.
Pablo's like a leadoff hitter taking strikes and not swinging at balls in the dirt or over his head.
With a base hit his last time, now 7 for 14 in his career against Volquez. Hits one a long way down the right field line, high and deep and foul.
You wonder why a guy can take pitches like Pablo is. When you have those kind of numbers against opposing pitcher, you're seeing it pretty well. And he's seeing it. That's a normal free swing right there on that high fastball by Volquez, but he's seeing the ball pretty well. I think if I'm Volquez here, I'm going to try to be a little more careful with him and go after Pence.
Bruce Bochy talked about the quality of his at-bats just in the last couple of days of the season, and then Hurdle talked about how tough a guy he is to pitch to because he can hit a good pitch, and sometimes right down the middle is the place to pitch him because he just swings at everything.
A lot of times the guys who can hit pitches all over the strike zone and out of the strike zone, the pitch down the middle, they can't decide what to do with it. Do I pull it? Do I hit it the other way? Do I hit it up the middle? By then it's too late and you ground out to second.
In the air and out of play. Good luck getting a book on a Vladimir Guerrero in his career. I mean, and same with Sandoval. Obviously Guerrero at another level from Sandoval, but guys who swing at everything.
Still think 2-2 right here. You can bounce a breaking ball and hopefully, if you're Volquez, hope to get Pablo Sandoval to chase it.
Didn't get it down enough, and it's lined into right center. A base hit. Sandoval's 2 for 2.
Well, Russell Martin and I were thinking on the same thing. You see him patting the glove on the ground. That means bounce this thing, bounce this breaking ball right here, and he didn't. Kept it up just enough that Pablo Sandoval, who's seeing the ball really well tonight. I mean, that ball's thigh high, or just above the knees, and that's when you want to bounce one. That's not where you want to throw that one to a guy that's hit you pretty well. And now the Giants got their leadoff hitter on again
for Hunter Pence. Pence hit a soft liner to short his first time up. Even with the slump that he had the last few weeks, he finished 3rd in the National League in hits, 2nd in the National League in runs scored, 4th in the National League in total bases.
Well, that's how good he was doing through August. And September came and it was a struggle.
And a bouncer through the left side, a base hit. And the Giants have the first 2 men aboard here in the 4th inning. Kurt Schilling is on his laptop again. Pay attention to the leadoff hitters, he says. Watch, for the most part, a leadoff hitters getting on make it a nightmare and it costs energy. Interesting, because when you have to work from the stretch right away, you've got the stress of a man on. And twice Sandoval has had a leadoff base hit in this game.
When you talk to Kurt Schilling about pitching in the postseason, it's like he said, a walk is a rally, where in the regular season it's not a rally yet, but a walk is a rally. A leadoff hitter getting on base by base hit is a rally. Now you got first and second right here, and you got Belt up, who's swinging pretty good, and Crawford, who hit a line drive to right field to Travis Snyder to make it out, but hit the ball hard off Volquez.
Upstairs, ball one. Then Hurdle talked about how Russell Martin has made so many great trips to the mound during the season, seemingly knowing when to go and what to say. And he just pointed out, gestured, said something to Volquez. You wonder if a trip to the mound is coming soon. But back in safely is Pence.
Well, that's a set play by Russell Martin, and you see it. That's where you want the pitch as a catcher. You want it up out of the zone, you preferably up and in. That way you can get it and get around the left-handed hitter, Brandon Belt, to make a throw. You look at all the room he had to throw, and Gabby Sanchez sneaking in behind Pence, but Pence being alert, getting back in time. And that's a play in the postseason you can run because Hunter Pence can't hear Roberto Kelly, his first base coach, right now.
2-1. Or did Volquez need a strike there? It's Kelly, the first base coach, alongside Pence. Sandoval out at second.
He might have been able to hear him right there where Roberto Kelly is standing, but right now where he's got his lead, he can't hear him.
Hands, 2-2.
Well, here's where Volquez can go any way he wants with it right now. Will he bounce a breaking ball to Brandon Belt, try to get the strikeout? Or if he can throw that two-seam fastball sinker down and away, can he get Belt to roll over and hit a grounder to Neil Walker and turn this double play?
Check swing. On the appeal, no swing, says third base umpire Paul Emmel, and the count is now full on Belt, and here goes Martin to the mound. Boy, what a big pitch this is coming up, given the magnitude of the game and the situation here this inning.
Yeah, well, this is a better pitch than he threw to Pablo Sandoval with 2 strikes, and there's a pitch right there, and give Belt a lot of credit. That is so difficult a pitch to lay off of. 2 strikes, all this energy running around this building. You want to be a hero and try to knock in the first run of a game, and you can lay off that pitch.
Any chance the runners are going here? Sandoval, Pence?
No, I don't think so. I think you got to keep Pablo there. Last thing you want to do is to strike him out, throw him out, and basically take yourself out of this inning.
Not going. And it's high, ball 4, and the bases are loaded with nobody out.
And that's one of the reasons why, Dan, because a lot of times Brandon Belt, even though he's been around for a few years, the last thing you want is to have him swing at a pitch out of the strike zone, knowing that Pablo Sandoval's not a base stealer, and chase something and try to do too much and strike out, throw out.
Let's talk briefly about the composition of the pitching staff. Liriano, Cole not on the roster because they've just pitched recently. They're being held back in case they advance. Locke, Worley, 2 other starters are. It's a 9-man pitching staff for Pittsburgh in this game, a 10-man pitching staff for the Giants. Nobody's up at the moment in the Pirates' pen. The batter is Brandon Crawford. And Crawford, who had a fly ball sharply to right field his first time up, had a pretty productive offensive season. He hit 10 homers, he had 10 triples, he had 20 doubles, and he drove in 69 runs on the season.
Yeah, and you look at the numbers right there, runners in scoring position, how hot he's been since August 30th. The month of September, he was very productive with runners in scoring position. Here's where you want to try to get something to drive. This is one of those, Dan, where a sacrifice fly would be great, but you're looking to try to hit something in a gap right here for Brandon Crawford, try to score multiple runs. And now, a situation right here, 1-1. If he gets 2 strikes, then you're just going to try to put it in play. Even if you hit into a double play, score a run.
Breaking ball fouled off, 1-2.
Not going to surprise me if they come right back with that breaking ball. Remember, first at bat, Crawford's first pitch swung at that breaking ball after he walked Belt for the first time in this game, and then ended up giving up that line drive to right field for an out. But I think if I'm Russell Martin, I'm coming back with it.
And the curveball is hit high and deep to right field. It is gone. Brandon Crawford silences the crowd here in Pittsburgh with a grand slam. And Clint Hurdle is on the phone to the bullpen.
And here's we thought Russell Martin might want to go back to that breaking ball, but you want to bounce it. There's an 85 changeup right there to Crawford, then a fastball way out of the zone, called a strike, and then there's the breaking ball, and there's another breaking ball that he wanted buried down and in, and instead kept it up in the zone. And Crawford, like we said, hitting with runner scoring position, takes it out.
Yoshikawa grounds out for the first out.
Yeah, this is one you want buried down on the ground, at his back ankle to try to get him to swing over top of it. And I mean, that's just up in the zone. And when you're trying to just lift something in the air to try to hit a sacrifice fly to try to get one run in, Brandon Crawford got the bonus plan with the big grand slam in this winner go home game.
And in a one-game winner-take-all situation, it can sometimes be, not that he's necessarily the unlikeliest of heroes, but anybody can jump up and change the game with one swing of the bat. And Brandon Crawford, a grand slam, 4-0 Giants, top four. Bumgarner is the batter. And there's a sharper breaking ball, and it's 0-2 on the Giants pitcher. And a swing and a miss, 2 down. Activity now on the pen. Right-hander Jared Hughes is up for the Pirates. Forgive me, not Hughes. That is Worley, 46, not 48. That is 46, Vance Worley, up in the Pirates' pen. He is a starter for Pittsburgh and on the roster for this kind of a situation if Volquez gets in trouble early. The inning began with a Sandoval base hit, then Pence with a bouncer through the left side for a single. Belt walked to load the bases, and Crawford emptied them. And another ground ball. Hitting over. But damage has been done. Brandon Crawford got a hanging breaking ball and deposited it in the seats in right to give the Giants a 4-run lead. into Pittsburgh, a Crawford grand slam. The Giants lead the Pirates 4-0. Going to the bottom of the fourth, a lead for their ace, Madison Bumgarner. They'll face 2, 3, 4. Mercer, McCutchen, Martin. You talk about a shutdown inning. His team has just given him the lead. He's facing the heart of the order. Can he put another 0 up on the board?
Well, that's the key, and that's, you know, but if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, you've got to remember recent history, which was last night. How Kansas City came back against Oakland and John Lester, and you thought once they took that lead 7-3, you thought, well, this game's over. So if you're the Pirates, you got to hold on to that thought that, you know, this thing's not over yet.
How crazy was that game?
Oh.
The Royals with 7 stolen bases, 7 different players, 4 sacrifices, all kinds of chances to win it, and eventually did.
The difference you're seeing, though, Dan, in Madison Bumgarner and James Shields and John Lester last night, Edinson Volquez for the Pirates tonight, is he's not missing location.
2-2 on Mercer, who grounded out his first time up.
He throws that fastball up, and it wouldn't surprise me if he comes back with that breaking ball at the back foot of Jordy Mercer.
Pulled foul. Bumgarner faced the Pirates once during the regular season. It was in San Francisco. And in 4 innings, he gave up 5 earned runs. That was on July the 28th. 6 hits. Gave up a home run to Josh Harrison. But he has been stellar so far tonight. And another swing and a miss on a pitch in the dirt. Posey snaps it down to first, and that's strikeout number 5 already for Bumgarner.
Well, you wonder why he can get it. You know, strike out so many guys and only have a low pitch count, because he's hitting the spot on almost every pitch. And there you see it, up and in, down and away to a lefty. He's controlling all quadrants of the plate, and when he needs to throw his breaking ball, once he gets ahead, he gets him to swing and miss. Edinson Volquez got ahead. He couldn't bury that breaking ball, gave up the home run to Brandon Crawford, the grand slam to Brandon Crawford. When Madison Bumgarner's throwing that breaking ball, he's throwing it with a purpose to bounce it and get swings and misses from these aggressive Pirate hitters.
And look at the pitch count. That was just the 35th pitch that he's thrown in the game.
And 5 strikeouts. Well, that's 15 of them right there at least. So he's very economical with his pitches right now.
He's given up just a hit to Russell Martin. That's it. 1-1 on McCutchen, who struck out in the first inning. 36 pitches, 28 strikes, 8 balls for Bumgarner. During the season this year, Crucky, a strikeout to walk ratio of better than 5-1. 219 strikeouts, only 43 walks.
Well, that's why if you're a Pirate hitter, you are aggressive, because, like you said, he's got 5 strikeouts already, a lot of them on the breaking ball. You know, when it's that good a breaking ball, the last thing you want to do is have to try to hit it. So you try to swing early to avoid that inevitably that pitch coming to you. Wouldn't surprise me if he buries this one too.
McCutchen pops it up and back out of play. So much fear here in Pittsburgh after McCutchen suffered that fractured rib late in the season, the day after he'd been hit by a pitch in the game against Arizona. But he spent a couple of weeks on the DL, came back swinging the bat very well, and they can't keep those jerseys on the shelves here in Pittsburgh.
And you know, Clint Hurdle told us he thought it helped Starling Marte too, because he got to move back to what he called his honey spot in center field to play a few games while McCutchen was out.
Clint Hurdle talks baseball about as well as anybody in baseball. I mean, he is a lifer. This is a guy who, by the way, is going to undergo hip surgery in the offseason, in a lot of pain, difficulty walking rather, in a special chair for him in the dugout, difficult for him to get out on the field during BP.
And I would almost venture to guess that during the celebration, someone took a shot at that hip when they were piling up on each other. It happens.
First 3-ball count of the night for Bumgarner.
Here's the thing, Dan, his command's so good he can throw any pitch right here.
But McCutchen wouldn't chase the slow breaking ball. He'll draw the walk as we send it down to Buster Olney.
Guys, Jake Peavy says that Madison Bumgarner is the most unaffected person he's ever been around in baseball. He talked about how he keeps everything simple. And Dave Righetti, the pitching coach, told me that before today's game, when Bumgarner was going around the clubhouse, he was stoic as always, and he had questions, but not about facing the Pirates, just about the timing of the pregame ceremonies and the introduction, because he wanted to get into his routine. Dan?
All right, Buster, thank you. He certainly has been into his routine tonight. That's the first walk. 4-0 Giants. Brandon Crawford with a grand slam, in case you weren't with us in the top half of the inning. Here's Russell Martin, who's got the only hit of the night for the Pirates. And Schill's at it again. He says if Bumgarner gets that shutdown inning this inning, Giants win.
Yeah, and if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, you don't stop what your game is, and
how about
stealing bases is a game.
How about Martin trying to bunt his way aboard, thrown out by a half step. So your catcher, your cleanup hitter, who's got a tight hamstring, is obviously healthy enough and still aggressive enough to try to bunt his way aboard, and they're on the phone to see if it's worth asking for a replay. With the naked eye, it looked like he was out.
It did look like he was out, and Brandon Belt, with a great footwork around the base, it actually looked like he might have pulled his foot off a little early just by the naked eye.
Clint Hurdle's on his way out. And nice for Clint that Joe West is going to come meet him halfway so that Clint doesn't have to get all the way to first base on that bad hit. That's a lot of years in baseball between those two, right?
Yeah, there is. And Joe West's in better shape than Clint Hurdle right now. Yeah,
Did Belt's foot come off?
Looked like he was. Nope, he held it. He held it, and he got him.
And they are not going to review it. So Martin is out, trying to bunt his way aboard. McCutchen is second on the play, 2 down. And it'll be up to Starling Marte. Hit .291 during the season, hit .348 after the All-Star break. No sacrifice credited to Martin on the plays. He was clearly trying to bunt for a base hit, and he didn't miss by much. If you're the Pirates, even if you get one run back here with a base hit, it kind of feels like a moral victory just to get something on the board.
Yeah, without question, especially the way Bumgarner's been pitching. Like you said, before this inning, the only base runner they had was the Russell Martin base hit before McCutchen walked.
To left field, Ishikawa is tested for the first time and makes the catch, and the inning is over. End of 4-0 Giants. Going to the top of the fifth, the Giants lead the Pirates 4-0 between innings. Tim Kirchin with Pittsburgh manager Clint Hurdle.
Clint, Edison Volquez ran into a little trouble in the fourth inning. What did you see from him there?
Well, it's something we've seen in the past. I mean, you get some base runners, he makes pitches, had some base runners early, he's able to work through it, hung a breaking ball, hit out of the park. One big swing in the bat, gets 4 runs.
What challenges has Madison Bumgarner presented so far?
Right now he's running the ball in tight on the right-handers. You know, he'll use that fastball cutter. We've probably seen more breaking balls than we did the last time he pitched. Also seeing some change-ups. So he's mixing, changing speeds very well, staying out of the middle of the plate.
Clint, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Madison Bumgarner definitely on top of his game so far tonight. 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, and a 4-0 lead thanks to the grand slam from Brandon Crawford. Just 45 pitches, an economical 4 innings so far. 2-3-4 for the Giants. Panic, Posey, and Sandoval. The bullpen was up last inning behind a Volquez. Worley was up. Quiet now as Volquez begins the 5th. 3 up, 3 down first. Gave up a hit and a walk in the second. Gave up a hit in the third. Command was so-so even through the first 3 innings. To Aeneas Walker. He's been a busy man tonight. 1 down. A lot quieter after the Crawford home run than it was before. This place was bedlam early.
Yeah, and they're looking for anything, Dan, right now to get excited about this game and get the Pittsburgh Pirates a little energy lift here to get them back in it. Right now they're all shocked.
Here's Posey. The winner will advance to a National League Division Series against the Washington Nationals. The other NLDS pits the Dodgers against the Cardinals. Both of those series will begin on Friday. Misses with a curveball, 2-0.
Still like what Russell Martin's doing. He's still making Volquez pitch. You know, sometimes you get behind, you want to just throw as a pitcher and not pitch anymore. And Russell Martin's making him use all his pitches, knowing that, you know, 1 more run could be the end of this game. I got a feeling though that he walks Buster Posey right here, that bullpen's going to start getting back up.
Strike, 3-1. You can see the difficulty with which Clint Hurdle is walking in the dugout, up and down the stairs. To center field, racing over McCutcheon. Where will you be the next time history is made? Be there for all the action in 2015. Go to MLB.com/season tickets to reserve your seat today. Follow the postseason with MLB.com at Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Stay connected with highlights, replay reviews, scores, live radio broadcasts, and more at the At Bat app for your smartphone or tablet. And look who's here. Joe Torre on the left, Jim Leland on the right. Leland, of course, some very successful years as the manager of the Pirates.
Very, very fun guy to play against, Jim Leland, when he was managing the Pittsburgh Pirates. Tell you what, this is amazing to me, this transformation in the postseason that Pablo Sandoval has. Taking pitch, he took a first pitch strike right there, Dan.
It's not in his playbook.
No, it's not. It's refreshing, though.
As you said, and you said it early, he is seeing the ball well tonight. You could tell by the swings. You could tell by the takes.
Yeah, and it's not so much the swings to me. It's the takes. Because he is such a free swinger. When he's laying off breaking balls in the dirt and that elevated fastball that Volquez has continued to try to throw to him, and he's laying off of it and now working Volquez back in the zone. No surprise, he's 2 for 2.
In the air down the left field line, but back out of play for Sandoval, who will be a free agent at the end of the season, and it figures to be one of the more interesting off-season contract situations. Do the Giants invest in Sandoval, who has had weight issues on and off over the years? Do they sign him to a multi-year deal and think that he can get in shape, stay in shape, or do they not want to risk it and let him go somewhere else? The talent is unquestioned. Good change up there, and the inning is over. Going bottom 5, Giants 4, Pirates nothing here in Pittsburgh. Of the National League Wild Card game is brought to you by Macy's. Welcome back to Pittsburgh. That's the Roberto Clemente Bridge just beyond the center field, left center field fence here at the ballpark. They close it to car traffic. People walk across the bridge to get from the other side of the river over here to the ballpark side. You remember when the All-Star game was here, what a show it was coming over the bridge.
The red carpet came over there.
And of course that guy's here. He's kind of got Giants colors on him. It's got like a black and orange thing happening instead of a black and gold thing happening. Here's Neil Walker. He'll be followed by Gabby Sanchez and Travis Snyder. Bottom 5. Giants 4. Pirates nothing. Brandon Crawford with a grand slam in the top of the 4th inning. Due up fourth this inning is Edinson Volquez. Pretty much say if his spot comes up, he probably wouldn't bat. And left-hander Justin Wilson is up in the pen.
Yeah, well, this is the point in the game that if they do get someone on, he's definitely going to pinch hit somebody.
Two and two on Walker.
That pitch right there could have been one of those up and away pitches so he can come back with his breaking ball down and in. He struck Walker out on an 0-2 pitch right down the middle last time. I think this breaking ball down and in might get him.
Bounced foul. Bumgarner was an all-star this year. He posted career highs in wins, innings pitched, and strikeouts. Had the second lowest ERA in his career over a full season. And finished top 5 in the league in innings pitched, wins, strikeouts, and complete games. Two again. Missed up and away. And he gets him swinging. Number 6 on the night for Bumgarner. How do you get a pitcher as good as this guy who's in a rhythm like this out of his rhythm?
By not swinging at balls out of the strike zone. I think Walker right here, this pitch up on a 3-2 pitch up. But that's just, I have a 4-run lead. I'm going to throw a fastball up and away. If you hit it out to right field over that 21-foot high wall, tip your cap. But, he's working against the aggressiveness right now of the Pittsburgh Pirates hitters.
Just a single by Martin to begin the second and a 1-out walk to McCutchen in the fourth. That's it against Bumgarner tonight. And Sanchez didn't like that call. And we'll get another look at it. I think you can kind of understand why. It appeared to be up.
Right at the top of the strike zone, well, 6 or 8 inches above the strike zone. You can see why Gabby Sanchez is a little upset with that call. That's one of those where he's only given up 1 hit. Don't help him. Now this is frustrating for both Sanchez and Madison Bumgarner and Buster Posey. Now where are we at here with it? What's the strike zone up now?
How tough is it as a hitter? Bumgarner can pitch up with success. He can pitch down. He can come in on you. He can pitch away. How tough is that?
And he can change speeds in both areas too, in and away. To me, just watching Madison Bumgarner over the last few years as a hitter, when I look at pitchers and say, how would I approach this guy? I would have to guess every pitch. And if I guessed wrong, I'd look foolish. But if I guessed right, I had a chance.
3-1, a drive to right center field, but it's hanging up long enough for Blanco to run it down for out number 2. Now Travis Snyder to face Bumgarner. Bumgarner got him looking his first time up. The Pirates taking it down to the last day of the season before the Cardinals finally won the National League Central. So Pittsburgh finding itself here in the wild card game for the 2nd year in a row.
That's the way the season ended up. Pittsburgh, we mentioned Garrett Cole pitching the last Sunday of the season to try to win and force the Cardinals to win the division, and Adam Wainwright was supposed to pitch Sunday.
Right.
They find out Pittsburgh loses because they're in Arizona playing, and they see Wainwright walking back from the bullpen before even warming up, and they went to a surplus of young pitchers and tried to finish that game up. But that's the difference between what the Giants were going through. The Giants were out of it. They weren't going to catch the Dodgers, so they can hold Madison Bumgarner back just for this game.
So in a weird sense, almost a disadvantage to still be in it in your division.
Yeah, there's probably a game there where Clint Hurdle probably thought, man, if he wouldn't have won that one, we'd be 2 out with 1 to go. And I have Garrett Cole, who was fantastic last year in the postseason.
But Hurdle's MO is never to concede an inch, right? So you go for it until they tell you can't anymore. And that's why he sent Cole out on his regular day.
And Dan, you couldn't sell that to the players. But wait a second, what are we doing? You're skipping Garrett Cole the last day of the season? What if Wainwright doesn't have a good game, and he loses? But we lose too. What's going on here?
Well, and Hurdle's kind of got like a tribal council with some people in the organization, some of the veteran players, and sought their advice as well.
But you see the advantage of winning your division. It's, you can rest your players. Your injured players can get treatment for 3 or 4 days. And your pitchers can rest another 3 or 4 days. Because right now, everyone's on fumes, basically, at the end of the season. And two days off is great, but 4 days off is better.
Snyder chases. And it's another good inning for Bumgarner. He's now up to 7 strikeouts through 5 shutout innings. And it remains 4-0 Giants. John Kruk, Buster Olney, Tim Kirkjian. I'm Dan Schulman. The National League wild card game on ESPN. 4-0, the Giants lead. All of the runs coming on one swing of Brandon Crawford's bat. And because Volquez's spot did not come up in the bottom of the 5th, he's back out to work the top of the 6th. Hunter Pence takes a strike. Pence tonight lined out and had a base hit in the 4th, and eventually scored on the Crawford grand slam. This inning will be it for Volquez, with him due to lead off next half inning. Pence, Belt, and then Crawford here in the 6th inning. Check swing foul off, 1-2.
His check swings are comical.
Everything's
yeah, it looked
different.
like he was on both heels and just stuck the bat out. Like,
but when Bruce Bochy says in all of his years managing, that's 20 in the big leagues, Pence is the lowest maintenance player he's ever had to deal with. That's a pretty good compliment from your manager.
It's like he said, he's rarely hurt. He never has to be in the training room getting treatment for anything, and he posts up every day and rides to the ballpark in a scooter. I mean,
takes a close pitch, full count.
That is a close pitch, and Volquez was very, very disappointed he didn't get that call, but here's where he has to bear down. The last thing you want to do now is get the leadoff hitter on, have Clint Hurdle have to make a move and possibly make a double switch and burn a player.
And Pence draws the walk. And Clint Hurdle is going to make his way out to the mound. And there's the call. So that's going to be it for Volquez. Wilson on his way into the game for the Pirates, with the Giants already leading 4-0 and the leadoff man aboard here in the 6th inning.
There's only this moment where one pitch can constitute a slump and one swing a streak.
Welcome back to the National League Wild Card game on ESPN, and what a moment for Brandon Crawford back in the 4th inning. A grand slam. That's all the offense in the game right now.
Back here.
Justin Wilson in to pitch for Pittsburgh. Hunter Pence aboard on the leadoff walk. Crawford on deck. And his wife Jalen is tweeting. Hashtag grand slam. Hashtag playoffs.
Pretty good night for the Crawfords so far. As Brandon Belt takes a strike. Justin Wilson, one of 3 left-handed relievers, 4 including starter Jeff Locke, and available in the bullpen tonight for the Pirates. 70 appearances in the regular season. And the Giants with a lot of left-handed bats in the lineup tonight. That'll get away, and Pence will take second.
Here's a great situation for the San Francisco Giants right here. Runner on second, no outs. You can get that if you can get him over to third. Crawford can bring him in. 5-0 lead takes you away from that grand slam tying the game up. 5th run's always big.
Wild pitch charge to Wilson. Pulls it sharply, and it scoots off the glove into Walker into right field for a base hit, and Pence is going to race home with the 5th run of the night for the Giants.
Great piece of hit by Brandon Belt. You wanted to get Hunter Pence over, and you got the bonus plan. I think the Giants were benefited by the fact that it did hit Neil Walker's glove and slowed it up before it got to Travis Snyder. You see that right there? It looks like he just barely tipped his glove, but I mean, Brandon Belt's in dead pull mode right here. Get Hunter Pence to third base, and it looks like it just hit the pinky of Neil Walker's glove and slowed it up. That gave Pence enough time to go around. And Tim Flannery told me last week he's been one of the loneliest men in baseball. Getting some action today.
Here's Crawford. Flannery down at third, flashing the signs. Crawford hit one into about the 3rd row of seats in right field. Bochy's demeanor rarely changes. He's been through so many of these types of games. He's won a couple of World Series. Always appears relaxed, rolls with the punches about as well as anybody.
Yeah, and he has a lot to be comfortable about this grand slam. Look at the swing by Crawford. See how he brings his hands in. Heard Barry Bonds say, if I can catch you with my top hand, I can hit anything. Crawford's hands in, the top hand comes over and just powers through that baseball to hit it in the 2nd row of the right field seats above that Roberto Clemente 21-foot high wall. Possibly could be sending the Giants on to the division series with that swing.
The Nationals await the winner of tonight's game. Did you see that note? The first grand slam by a shortstop in postseason history.
Wow.
And trying to do some more damage. The book's now closed on Volquez. He gives up 5 innings and 5 runs rather than 5+ innings tonight. The Giants used to winner take all or elimination games. They've had their backs to the wall. Remember in 2012 they were in trouble against Cincinnati and again St. Louis. And
Barry Zito rescued him.
Yeah, that's right.
The thing with the Giants, you look at it, they just look comfortable playing in this situation. There's no panic. There's no, if anything, it seems like they're more selective as hitters. Hunter Pence walks. How many times does that happen? Pablo Sandoval taking strikes and working counts. I mean, they just seem comfortable in this position.
Yes, he did. And Crawford strikes out for the first out of the inning. Right-hander Jared Hughes now up in the pen. The batter Here's Travis Ishikawa, who has struck out and grounded out. Giants up 5-0 as they bat here in the top of the 6th inning. 4 runs in the 4th, another one here in the 6th. Chased a high fastball at 96 from Wilson. It's 0-1. Spending a lot of time on a guy who's not known to be that much of a base stealing threat. 3 on the season. Buster Posey alongside Giants pitching coach Dave Righetti. What an arm that guy had.
That's an advantage of having Dave Righetti as a pitching coach. He started, threw a no-hitter. He was a great closer. He's done everything. When he's with the White Sox, he pitched middle relief, left-handed specialist. I mean, he's done everything you can do as a pitcher. So he can relate to everyone on his whole staff.
A lot of continuity on that staff over the years, too.
And they're all nuts.
And that's about as high a compliment, folks, as John Kruk can give a group of people.
Yeah, they're great, though. I mean, that guy helped a lot right there. Jake Peavy, they bring him over to trade. 2-time Cy Young. You're going to the bullpen, no complaints. That's respect to the coaching staff.
That guy's meant a lot. Tim Hudson, too. You see Madison Bumgarner spending a lot of time with Hudson in the Giants clubhouse. By the way, Peavy is on the roster tonight. Hudson is not. So Peavy available if this game were to ever go deep into extra innings. He could be called upon. He's pitched tremendously well since coming over to San Francisco.
Yes, he has. He's been, you lose Matt Cain. It's tough to replace someone who's meant so much to that organization, but Peavy's done pretty good.
And if they were to win, he could be in line for game 1 in 48 hours from now in Washington. Bumgarner would be a game 3 guy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who Washington goes with their number 1. Sunday, Jordan Zimmerman throws a no-hitter. Steven Strasburg was among the league leaders in strikeouts. But still a long way to go on this one, Dan.
5-0, 6th inning.
Bruce Bochy's telling him if Ishikawa gets on here, I might not be bunting you.
And Wilson walks Ishikawa. 2 on with a 1 out as we send it down to Buster Olney.
Guys, an example of how much confidence that the Giants have in Madison Bumgarner came last week in their game against the Dodgers. If you remember, they were down 3-2 in the 8th inning. Bumgarner's spot was about ready to come up. Bruce Bochy went to him and explained to him that he was going to have to take him out for a pinch hitter. Bumgarner was arguing with him, said, "No, Boch, you can't let me do that." And Boch said, I know. And Bumgarner looked at him and said, "You ain't talking to me like you know." And then Bochy said, "Okay, you're right. Go ahead and hit." Now, he struck out, but it gives you an idea of exactly how much faith they have in Bumgarner.
For a guy who hasn't been around all that long, just 25 years of age, he has earned a lot of that respect in the last few years. We have a pitching change. We have a double switch. We have Jared Hughes racing in. And we have the Pirates trying desperately to grasp onto anything to give them a little momentum here in this game. Pirates nothing. Top of the 6th, the run in, 2 on, 1 out. New pitcher, new outfielder, new right fielder as well for the Pirates as Clint Hurdle executes the double switch. Jose Tabata is into the game at a right field for Travis Snyder. Put him in the 9 spot. So he will lead off the next inning. And Jared Hughes, the new pitcher, goes into Snyder's spot in the 8th spot. And there's Juan Perez. He is running at first base for Travis Ishikawa, and he will stay in the game in left field, you would imagine.
Yeah, you would imagine the defensive replacement. But yeah, I think it's interesting here with just the 1 out. And Madison Bumgarner didn't even turn around the bunt. And I think Bruce Bochy called him over and said, I might give you 1 swing at this, and then I might put it on.
That's what he does. Bunted foul. Again, Bumgarner is a formidable hitter as a pitcher. Hit .258 this year, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs. He led National League pitchers in all 3 categories. So if there were a pitchers hitting triple crown, Madison Bumgarner would have won it this year. And his home runs weren't cheapies.
No, they're legit. But I mean, you saw the approach. You know, the first pitch, it was a ball up and in that he swung at because he had 1 free swing. Bruce Bochy was allowing him to have, and then it was bunt. But now anything goes. Try to ambush the pitcher. You think, okay, he's bunting. I'm going to throw a fastball just to try to get ahead. Hopefully, he pops up the bunt. Bumgarner jumps him. Didn't happen there, and now it's a battle. It would surprise me if he didn't bunt him here. Most of the time, 0-2, you still bunt the pitcher, but his hands are set like he's bunting, but he's pulling them back. He's going to go get a new weapon.
Broke that bat.
Yeah, that's special right there. Most pitchers just take whatever bat they give them and go hit. He's actually put some of the stick pine tar on it. He has a clue.
And he's earned the trust of that guy.
That trust might have been a little different if it was a 1-0 game or a 0-0 game. 5-0, you take a chance on blowing this thing wide open.
And Brian Gorman's going to make the call right at the plate, saying that Bumgarner went around, 2 down.
I don't know about that. That was close.
The suspense continues tomorrow on TBS as the Tigers take on the Orioles, followed by the Royals and the Angels. Game 1 of those 2 American League Division Series. Do not miss the action. The National League Division Series both begin on Friday in Washington and Los Angeles. And don't forget, every game of the postseason, right through the end of the World Series, can be heard on ESPN Radio. 2 on, 2 out. Here's Gregor Blanco, 0 for 3. Two pitching changes in the inning. So if nothing else, if you're a Pirates fan and trying to find something to give you a little bit of optimism, Bumgarner will have had a long time between stints on the mound. Didn't have to run the bases or anything. You can see the long faces. The energy has really changed in this ballpark. Roller to short. Hitting over. A run in for the Giants to the bottom of the 6th. They're up 5-0. Welcome back to Pittsburgh. It's the National League wild card game on ESPN. Dan Shulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney, Tim Kirkjian. As we go to the bottom of the 6th inning, as expected, Juan Perez stays in the game in left field after pinch running for Travis Ishikawa. And Jose Tabata getting his first at bat of the night, came on in the double switch. Tabata facing Bumgarner. Tabata this season hit .282 and 174 at bats. Actually was outrighted by the Pirates. He spent a couple of months down in the minors this year. This guy who looked like he would be a real fixture here.
Yeah, that was the thought, that he would man the right field position. And
it's rally cap time. It's rally cap time. That's a Pirate.
Yes, it is. Not a happy one either.
And strike 3 called to get Tabata. Strikeout number 8 for Bumgarner. Are they keeping the faith here in Pittsburgh? All they have to do is maybe think about what happened in Kansas City last night. Oakland led 7-3 before the Royals just started chipping away, running away, bunting away. Even George Brett couldn't believe it after Salvador Perez, who had chances earlier to win the game, came up with a base hit down the left field line to score the winning run in the 12th in a wild card game.
He had a couple poor at bats, to be kind.
Josh Harrison, base hit left field. The igniter for the Pirates is aboard with a 1 out of the 6th inning. That is just the 2nd hit given up by Madison Bumgarner.
See if the Pirates play it like the Royals did and be aggressive on the base pass. Got to do something to shake up Madison Bumgarner. Right now it's cruise control.
Pitch counts low, just 67 through 5 1/3. Harrison with a good speed. The batter is Mercer. Little nubber back to the mound. Bumgarner will take the sure out at first. And as much as the enthusiasm built after the base hit, it drops down again after that 2nd out. It'll climb again here, though, momentarily, because this is the guy they love to see him come to the plate. As we mentioned right off the top of the show, a case could be made that he had as good, maybe even in some ways statistically, a better season last year when he won the MVP. Doesn't appear to be getting quite the national acclaim this year that he did last year, but there's no question when you start talking about the great players in the game, the faces of the game, that this guy's on the short list.
He is very much so on that short list, and it's I think that's the best thing the Pittsburgh Pirates have done in a long time, was sign him to a long-term deal. Well, he bought into what the Pittsburgh Pirates were trying to do, and when your best player buys in, the other guys have no choice but to pay attention and buy in too.
A fly ball to shallow right center field, and it'll be Blanco making the catch. McCutchen is retired, and the Pirates go by the wayside at the bottom of the 6th.
for the Giants, that moment is here.
And welcome back to Pittsburgh, the National League wild card game on ESPN, a 5-0 lead for the Giants. The stars tonight for San Francisco, Brandon Crawford with a grand slam, and Madison Bumgarner with 6 outstanding innings tonight. Will they be filing over that bridge unhappy in about 3 innings time? Or will the Pirates find a way to mount a rally? Look at those two. Look at those two kids up there. See them to the right?
Yes.
They shouldn't be up there. They shouldn't be up there.
You wouldn't catch me up there.
You wouldn't catch me up there either. 2, 3, 4. Panic, Posey, and Sandoval for the Giants in the 7th. Panic, he is 1 for 3. Hit .305 during the regular season. We have not mentioned Andrew Susac tonight, who, like Panic, maybe gave the Giants, maybe it was a bit of an unexpected surprise. I mean, Panic came up and solidified second base. Susac spelled Posey behind the plate, delivered some clutch hits, allowed Posey to play first base sometimes.
Yeah.
Those two guys really helped the Giants this year.
They really have. I think Joe Panic more than anyone, because of the fact that not only did he fill a second base spot that's been a problem for the Giants all season until he got there, but also the number 2 spot in the batting order. Oh, they tried Hunter Pence there, and there's another hit by Panic. It's just what he does.
Puts the ball in play line to line. And the leadoff man is aboard for the 4th time in 7 innings tonight. Well, the Giants through June the 8th had the best record in baseball. They were 43-21, but then an extended rough stretch for them. Just 21-38 as they fell well behind the Dodgers. Then the offense came alive. They went on another great stretch, but then did not play great at the end of the season, although right at the end of the season, Bruce Bochy was encouraged by the way they closed the season, taking 3 out of 4 from the Padres right at the end of the year, and thought that that helped them build some momentum, even though really their fate had been determined. To take 3 out of 4 from San Diego, he thought really kind of launched them momentum-wise into the postseason.
Yeah, it's tough to limp into the postseason. You saw what happened with Oakland last night. Even though they had that big lead, they limped into the postseason. And as much as you want to think, yes, we're a confident group, but when you play as poorly as Oakland did in the month of September, it's hard to be confident coming into the postseason.
Posey with a base hit. And first and second with a nobody out for the Giants here in the 7th. Posey's first hit of the night.
Mr. Posey hit 3 fly balls in his first 3 at bats, and this one you can see stays down on it. Like you said, he's one of the best at keeping his hands inside the ball. But watch that top hand roll over right at the end to get it, the palm up, palm down theory of hitting, and drives it right past Jordy Mercer. And here come the Giants with another possibility of a big inning.
And a guy who swung the bat well tonight, Pablo Sandoval, 2 for 3. More activity. Left-hander Bobby Laframboise is up in the pen. The 3rd left-hander, a guy who was a September call-up, just a handful of appearances. And thrilled, of course, to be on the postseason roster. So Clint Hurdle still has not gotten up. Watson and some of the other key guys in the bullpen. He has used Wilson, Hughes, both of whom were major contributors in the pen. Mark Melanson is the closer for Pittsburgh. Wilson gave up a hit and a walk in a 3rd of an inning, gave up an inherited run for Volquez, and Hughes came on, got the last 2 outs, but now he's given up 2 hits to start the 7th. And he's a pitch away from loading the bases. strike at the knees.
I don't think I've ever seen Pablo Sandoval go this many at bats working counts.
Think it makes him a better hitter?
It has to.
Panic at second, Posey at first.
Oh, that's when he could come unglued on.
To left field. And that is a foul ball slicing into the corner beyond the reach of Marte. Five runs on 8 hits, no errors, 5 left for the Giants. No runs on 2 hits, no errors, 3 left for the Pirates. Runners are going, and it's ball 4 to load the bases.
I think that's going to tell you everything you need to know about Pablo Sandoval. You know, when your runners are hitting, you want to try to protect them, but I think that tells Bruce Bochy how locked in he is to send the runners with the guy who's a free swinger.
Ray Searage, the pitching coach, heading to the mound.
Here's Pablo Sandoval, just about as dialed in as a hitter as you've seen in the postseason, and for good reason. He's taken 2 close pitches. There's a 3rd close pitch that he normally swings at. 4th pitch, it was 3-0 right now. Then that pitch was down out of the zone. He took it. Then he went to hacking on that low ball. He thinks, all right, Hughes is just going to keep it down in the zone. That was the pitch right there, because with the runners moving, I thought Pablo would try to expand his strike zone just to put the ball in play. A great take for ball 4. Bases loaded, now no outs, and Pirates can't let any more in here if they expect to have a chance at this game.
Some left-handed batters coming up next, so this will probably be the final batter for Hughes. The infield is in with the bases loaded and nobody out. And a ground ball to second. Coming home, they'll get 1. And does Clint Hurdle make the move for the left-hander, or does he stay with a much more experienced right-hander against the left-hand hitting Brandon Belt?
I think when you look at the sink on Hughes' ball, he might want to keep him in here, try to get the double play there. They are moving the middle infielders, Jordy Mercer and Neil Walker, back to turn double plays. The corners are in. Of course, they're going to come home with it. It's an interesting decision, though, right here by Clint Hurdle.
And there's a liner into right center field, a base hit. 1 run is home, and here comes a 2nd run, as Belt has driven in 3, Crawford has driven in 4, and it is 7-0 Giants. And they are in disbelief here in Pittsburgh.
Well, Hughes, you see the grip right there. He's trying to throw that 2-seamer to sink away from Brandon Belt, and it elevated too much above the knees, mid to lower thigh, and Brandon Belt goes out and hooks one into the outfield center field, easily scoring both runs and giving no chance for McCutchen to throw anyone out at all.
So the Giants keep piling on. They've added 2 more here in the 7th. Crawford and Belt have done the damage tonight, and Laframboise is on his way in here in the 7th. Brandon Crawford with his third career grand slam, his first in the postseason. That made it 4-0 back in the fourth, another in the sixth, two more here in the seventh, all Giants. Behind Crawford and Belt offensively, Bumgarner on the mound. And making his playoff debut is left-hander Bobby Laframboise. Who began the year at spring training with the Mariners, was designated for assignment, acclaimed by San Diego. Spent most of the year at AAA in the Padres organization as Crawford steps in. And eventually was claimed on waivers by Pittsburgh and made 6 September appearances for them. And here he is in the postseason. Sweeping slider, and it's 0-2. All the left-handed bats the Giants have. Clint Hurdle wanted a third left-hander in the pen. This is his guy.
I understand that, and that if he's going to bring him in to pitch to Crawford, he might have thought about bringing him in to face Belt. That's why they get paid the big bucks, and why sometimes they don't stick around long in one place. Not saying anything. Clint Hurdle should be fired for that move or anything, but it's just an interesting move that you had the lefty ready for the left-handers in the Giants lineup, and Belt and Crawford. You leave the righty in, he gives up a big hit, a two RBI single, and then you bring him in now to face Crawford.
Pence out at second, Belt at first. Belt's 2 for 2, 2 walks, 3 RBIs tonight. And a ground ball to second. And there's the double play they were looking for. But not before a couple more runs score. 7th inning stretch in Pittsburgh, 7-0 Giants.
American League Division Series get underway tomorrow. Nelson Cruz in his 40 home runs. The Orioles hosting the Tigers. The Angels will take on the Royals. Mike Trout, a great season. The National League Division Series begin on Friday. How about Kershaw and Wainwright in Game 1? And then the Nationals taking on the winner of this game tonight, looking more and more like it'll be the Giants. Tune into TBS tomorrow for Game 1 of both American League Division Series. Fox Sports 1 has Game 1 of both National League Division Series on Friday. And then it's a busy day Friday. There will be 4 games on Friday. All 4 series will be in action, and all postseason games right through to the end of the World Series also available on ESPN Radio. Going bottom 7 here at PNC Park. Pirates are down 7. Brandon Crawford with a grand slam. Brandon Belt, 2 hits, 3 RBIs, and Madison Bumgarner, Truckee, has been outstanding, efficient, just in control, it seems, the whole night.
Yeah, as advertised, knowing coming into this game, everyone knew that he was the Giants guy to win the big game for them, their #1 pitcher all season long, and boy, has he really lived up to that in this one tonight.
Bumgarner working into the 7th. Facing Russell Martin, Starling Marte, Neil Walker, 4, 5, and 6 in the Pirates lineup. Martin, a free agent at the end of the season. Another guy who will be highly coveted around baseball. But obviously the Pirates would love to have him back.
And I hope they do bring him back. I think he's the glue to this team. I think he holds this team together with his intensity, leadership in the clubhouse, but to the pitching staff too.
Two and 1 on Martin. You can hear sporadically the "Let's Go Bucks" cheer, but it was about 10-20 times louder maybe at the beginning of the night than it is now, and it stayed that loud until the moment Crawford hit the grand slam. That's when the air kind of came out of the balloon here in this ballpark, and they've been unable to mount any kind of a serious challenge really against Bumgarner. The largest deficit overcome to win a game in the postseason, 8 runs. The Philadelphia Athletics against the Chicago Cubs in the 1929 World Series.
The Cubs have never been the same.
Last night the Royals overcame a 4-run deficit to win. The Pirates are down 7 right now. Jammed him, and he gets a pop-up. In foul territory, a play for Sandoval, and he makes the catch and sticks the landing. That's a heck of a play.
That's a great play. You know, you hear people talk about Pablo Sandoval and his weight and all that, but I tell you what, the guy's pretty nimble and pretty athletic, and you see that play right there. You know, most guys are tumbling in the dugout, landing on their head. He did a perfect flip right here. You see, I never took his eyes off. Right hand reaches out, grabs the rail. He knew exactly where he was, and then, you know, the little somersault and back up the steps, and let's go get him, boys. 1 out.
Now strike to Marte.
Watch you look at that.
That's a graceful panda. Right? Pirates have not had a runner past second base all night long. They've never had 2 men on in the same inning. It has been a dominant performance by Bumgarner. He's got 8 strikeouts tonight. Pretty good looking curveball that just misses. Must have been outside.
Harrison, McCutchen, two of the keys for the Pirates. Harrison's got a hit. McCutchen has walked. Martin's got a hit, and that's it. Until now, base hit Marte.
Well, Madison Bumgarner's gotten strikeouts in the zone, out of the zone, and here's the thing with the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're taking pitches in the zone because he's been so great with his command on all his pitches. And then when he gets ahead, he can throw the ball out of the strike zone and get Pirates hitters to chase, especially that breaking ball. They have not had any luck against it whatsoever, but give Madison Bumgarner all the credit in the world. His location has been impeccable. When he has to throw a strike, he does. When he wants to throw a ball to get a swing and miss, he's done that. And that's why you look at those numbers. 1 walk and 8 strikeouts. Total command of this Pirates lineup.
If you're wondering about the possibility of whether Bruce Bochy would want to get Bumgarner out of there, Game 3 of the National League Division Series is not till Monday. That's regular rest from tonight. So you got to ride him as much as you can ride your ace right here to make sure you can lock up this win. This is the rest, including Bumgarner. This is the rest of the projected postseason rotation for the Giants. Jake Peavy among the others, certainly pitching the best. And you would guess if San Francisco advances, it would be Peavy in Game 1, Hudson in Game 2, and then Bumgarner in Game 3.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And I think, too, with the way Tim Hudson finished, not on a strong note. He heard issues about the hip injury. If you have to bring one of the guys back on short rest, Peavy would probably be the guy you could do that with, as opposed to Hudson pitching in Game 1.
And Walker skies one back of short. Crawford backpedaling. 2 down. They do have some flexibility on the pitching staff. Again, not that they've won this game yet, but Vogelsong could sneak in there for a start. Yusmeiro Petit bounced back and forth a little bit when Lincecum went to the pen. Petit started, and Bruce Bochy has proven, and the Giants as a staff have proven, you do whatever you have to do in October.
Yeah, when their backs were down in 2012, they turned to Barry Zito, who was a guy that in 2010 they left off the playoff roster altogether.
And that's going to be the inning. Sanchez pops up. No runs, a base hit, and a man left. End of 7. Giants 6 outs away from advancing. Welcome back to the National League Wild Card game on ESPN. We're at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Dan Shulman, John Kruk, Buster Olney, Tim Kirkjian. It's all Giants. Leading 7-0 as we go to the top of the 8th inning. And a new pitcher for the Pirates. Interesting story. John Holtzcomb, who, depending on what you read, is somewhere between 6'7" and 6'9". Back in May, he was just looking for work, and he found a job in the United League. That is an independent league. Pitched once there with San Angelo. Then had his contract bought, went up to a higher level independent league, the American Association. Pitched with Amarillo, but was not a part of organized professional baseball. A Pirates scout saw him. As the fly ball is sent into right center field. One down, Perez retired. This guy throws 96 to 98 miles an hour, but just had trouble with his control. A lot of trouble with his control, but changed his grip. One of the coaches worked with him down in the independent league and helped him and changed his grip, and he's throwing strikes. The Pirates signed him, sent him to Double-A. He did great. Sent him to Triple-A. He did great. And here he is 4 months ago. He's in Amarillo. Now he's pitching in the playoffs.
How do you miss on that? 6'8", throws 90, high 90s. It might walk a guy or two. Are you kidding? 29 teams passed on it, and the Pirates took a shot. Unbelievable. I got a feeling Madison Bumgarner's, much a competitor as he is he's pretty happy with getting out of here unscathed. See, that's a two-seamer running in, and that's what we were told. He's got great movement on his pitches. You can two-seam it, cut it.
Pirates with all kinds of guys on the roster in this game who were September call-ups.
He's only 26. Yeah. It's not like it's a 34-year-old project. Wow.
Full count. Got him. Bumgarner not happy as he takes his lead. Strikes out on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball for out number 2. Follow the postseason with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Stay connected with highlights, replay reviews, scores, live radio broadcasts, and more. Get the At Bat app for your smartphone or tablet. Back to the top of the order for Gregor Blanco, 0 for 4.
Trying to tell me that before 26 years old, no one could say, why don't you change your grip and it would help you help your command? It took that long?
I was reading a story like, 1 appearance, 10 walks in 5 innings. I mean, real serious control problems, but he figured it out. You can't teach 6'9", and you can't teach 96.
Wow, that was back in my minor league days. That was the Williams brothers, Mitch and Bruce. They both threw 100, 150 some walks a season. Nothing to them. I think Mitch once told me he threw like about 150 pitch 9-inning game or something like that in the minor leagues. Only walked 10. Locked in. But maybe we should have taught him another grip. He could have pitched like this young man. He's 6 though and throwing 98.
Imagine the ride that this guy's been on this year.
Guarantee
he walks Blanco.
I guarantee you when he was in Amarillo, he never once thought to himself, well, I wonder how I'm going to do in this wild card game. I wonder if I'll get in. That wasn't even an issue. But tell you what, that's the great thing of baseball, the great stories about perseverance and The guy's not wanting to take that uniform off when the major league team doesn't want you, and you go to independent league, and 2 different ones. He got sold from one, didn't he?
He kind of got, it sounded like he got kind of loaned from the American Association down to the United League, made 1 appearance, and then they realized they needed him, so they brought him back or bought his contract out. Double-A, he went in Double-A, Triple-A combined. He made 22 appearances, had an ERA under 2, struck out 37 and 27 2/3, and then he began his major league career with 8 straight scoreless appearances before giving up a home run to Todd Frazier in his final regular season game. Yeah, he's tall.
Oh, boy, is he ever. Tell you what he has, too. He's got, besides the long leg, he's got long arms. And that creates that little bit extra miles per hour, yeah. I would imagine.
Clint Hurdle described it as a severe downward plane to us before the game.
Tell you what, if he threw uphill, he'd hit us with a pitch up here in this booth.
That's what it looks like coming at you.
That's 96, 97 cutting.
Panik is 2 for 4. On the edge, 3-1. And a base hit through the left side for Panik, his 3rd hit of the game.
Nervous. First postseason game average. But that's what he does. He understands what he is about. He understands his game. He doesn't overswing. You've never seen him swing where his helmet looks like it's going to fall off and all that. He just knows his swing.
Ray Searage is on his way to the mound. He's going to have a chat with Holtzcomb as left-hander Tony Watson gets up. Could come in to face the next batter, Sandoval, who's hit much better from the left side this year than from the right side. Volquez went 5+ innings, gave up 5 runs, all earned on 5 hits, including the Crawford grand slam. Justin Wilson, Jared Hughes, Bobby Laframboise, and now John Holtzcomb since. With the Giants winning 7-0. A guy who had a pretty good season offensively, contributed Crawford, with maybe somewhat of an unlikely hero tonight with a grand slam. That's the likely hero if you're a Giants fan. Bumgarner doing his job and then some tonight. Brandon Belt also having a big night at the plate. So here's Holtzcomb now with 2 on and 2 out, facing a former MVP and batting champion, Buster Posey. Well, they came here so optimistic, so loud. An unbelievable atmosphere. Now some of them can hardly bear to watch. Second straight year in the postseason. Gave the Cardinals all they could handle in a division series last year. Up the middle and through, a base hit. And Blanco's going to come in to score on an RBI single by Posey. It's 8-0.
Buster Posey, we talked about how hot he was coming in, and that's a pitch probably down in the strike zone, and see how he just goes down and gets it. Uses his hands great. Barrel of the bat, but the head's always staying still with Buster Posey. No movement in the head. Can track the ball a lot longer. And again, another guy who, even though he has power, doesn't try to do too much with his swing. It's very simple, very compact, but very efficient.
There's Sandoval. The Giants are now 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position tonight. Sandoval's 2 for 3 with a walk.
His swing's a little different than Posey's and Panik's. There's more, as Buck Showalter likes to say, that contact to damage ratio.
Off the glove of Holtzman, backhanded by Walker, shovel to Mercer. Inning over. Another run though for the Giants. We're going to the bottom of the 8th here into Pittsburgh. They're getting closer. They can feel it. They're up 8-0 going bottom 8. Of the National League wildcard game is brought to you by Voya Financial, changing the way you think of retirement. That is a Primanti Brothers sandwich, Crucky. That's a Pittsburgh tradition. Fries and slaw right on the sandwich.
Is that bologna? Looked like bologna.
You want one? That ball is caught by Pence. Brent Morel pinch hitting. It's the first pitch down the line. And maybe not quite the flair of the Sandoval play from last inning, but an excellent effort there by Pence.
Well, the Giants can do absolutely nothing wrong here. Saw Pablo go over the dugout rail and Hunter Pence just reaching over that short fence. Most of the fences down each line in most ballparks are 12 feet high, 14 feet high, and that one's a low one here in PNC Park, and Hunter Pence reaches over. I don't know if he hurt something or might have banged his leg up against that fence or his ribs. Who knows? But if they win, he'll play Friday. I can almost guarantee it.
Here's Tabata. Up once tonight, caught looking. 8-0 Giants, bottom 8 in Pittsburgh. The Giants 5 outs away from advancing onto the National League, a National League Division Series against the Washington Nationals. The Nationals had a terrific season, have such a deep pitching staff with Strasburg, Zimmerman, Pfister, Gonzalez, Roark. Yank foul. Man, did Tampa to get around on that. What impresses you the most about the Nats?
You know, they're pitching, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Ryan Zimmerman.
Anthony Rendon had one of the best seasons anybody had in the National League.
Yeah, he did. And, Jason Worth had a great year.
LaRoche.
Adam LaRoche. And Bryce Harper even started coming on there in the second half of the season. And
Denard Span had a good year.
Well, yeah, he's just consistent.
Yeah, not a lot of weak spots.
No. No,
In and out of the glove of Crawford. And Tabata's aboard.
Hey, there's always hope. Till that 27th out, play it through it. That's one thing Clint Hurdle has instilled in this team is, there's no give up. Anything can happen.
An error charged to Crawford on the play. Now back to the top of the order for Harrison. Jay Hay, as they call him here locally, at .315 on the season, second in the National League. After the All-Star break, he was second in the National League in extra base hits behind only Matt Kemp of the Dodgers.
But it tells you how dominant Madison Bumgarner is. A one-out error by the shortstop, and that the people are getting very festive.
Yep. The angry Pirates still here. Rally caps for some. They're trying to stay positive. They're trying to believe. This could be trouble. Harrison beats it out. Tabata comes to third. Be a base hit for Harrison and an error on Joaquin Arias, who came on this inning, allowing Talbot to go from second to third.
Great play right there by Arias to barehand him, but then the throw just sails into Josh Harrison running down the line. Brandon Belt had no chance, but see the play right there. He got it deep into his palm when he tried to get out in his fingers. He didn't have a great grip on it. Kind of sailed on him. And Belt did everything he could to try to keep Talbot at second base, but just got past him far enough. And hit here by Jordy Mercer, and you got McCutchen and Martin coming up.
First time the Pirates have had a runner to third base tonight. First time they've had two men on in the same inning. And really, it's not Bumgarner's fault. You've had an error and then an infield hit and an error. Otherwise, they don't have anything going at all.
Nope.
Hunter Strickland is up in the Giants' pen. Sergio Romo has joined him. Romo, the former closer, now working a lot in the eighth inning and set up situations. And Strickland, a guy with a big arm, a young guy with a power arm who a lot of people project as a future closer.
Yeah, they absolutely love him too in the Giants organization. But this is what happens in a wild card scenario right here. You have an 8-0 lead, eighth inning, and Bruce Bochy can get up his two main guys, and in the eighth inning of an 8-0 game. And a regular season, you're trying to hold them back a day or two to give them rest, but they have off tomorrow if they do win this one tonight. Go back at it Friday in Washington.
Mercer strikes out, second out of the inning, ninth strikeout of the game for Bumgarner as Romo and Strickland continue to warm. And now it'll be McCutchen.
Wouldn't surprise me if McCutchen gets gets a hit here. Last at bat possibly this year in front of his home fans. Seems to be that type that can rise to the occasion.
Bumgarner out in front 0-2. He has been in the strike zone all night long, but not right down the middle. I mean, he's been commanding both sides of the strike zone.
Both sides and up and down.
At 100 pitches right now through 7 2/3.
Just, once Tabata got to third base, it just doesn't seem like he wants to let him score, does he?
And a ground ball to short. And that ends the inning. If it's the end of the night for Bumgarner, what a job he has done tonight. 8 shutout innings here in the wild card game. Top 9 in Pittsburgh. Giants up 8-0 on the Pirates. Hunter Pence, the batter. New pitcher for the Pirates is their closer, Mark Melancon. A shot off the mound, out to second, backhanded by Walker. 1 pitch, 1 out. Melancon 33 saves and 37 opportunities this year. Obviously, this is the furthest thing from the save situation, but had an excellent year. Took over for Jason Grilli early in the season as the closer. Grilli eventually traded to the Angels. And Melancon's second good year in a row with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is what the Pittsburgh Pirates do. They take guys who are struggling in another organization. They bring them here, and somehow they turn them into quality or better than quality big league pitchers. They did it this year with Volquez. AJ Burnett had a great year last year.
Francisco
Liriano's turned it around.
Here's a guy who's had a good night. Brandon Belt, 2 walks, 2 singles, 3 runs driven in. This guy could be a difference maker if he continues to swing the bat like he did the last week of the season and into tonight, giving them a little more length in the lineup. Down in the 6th spot, Crawford, as we've seen tonight, can be dangerous down in the 7th spot.
The Washington Nationals have one left-handed starter, Gio Gonzalez. The other's a right. And in their bullpen, they do have a couple lefties, but late in the game, it's going to be Tyler Clippard, Soriano, and Drew Storen. So they're going to see some right-handed pitching with the Washington Nationals if they win this game.
Well, so Martin's had a busy night behind the plate blocking pitches. Bumgarner coming back out. Melanson will put the tag on Belt for the second out. Sports Center comes your way following the ball game tonight. More reaction from the ballpark here in Pittsburgh, with the Giants seemingly on their way to advancing, and also LeBron takes the court in Cleveland. Talk a little bit about Bruce Bochy, a guy you've known very well for many, many years. What makes him the manager he is?
He has the respect of the players, but he lets the players police themselves. You've been in that clubhouse so many times. It's such a relaxed clubhouse. It's, you have some guys in there that are loud and having fun, and you have others. Buster Posey's not a guy that mingles in with the loud group. He's kind of a quiet, stoic kind of guy. Any player you talk to that's played for him, and they'll tell you, they said he has the way of making you feel like on this day you're the best player he's ever been around.
The stability, the coaching staff, Bochy, and Brian Sabian is the general manager as well. It's rare these days to see a core group like that stay together for as many years as they have.
Yeah, I was surprised when San Diego let him go. I think he was surprised they let him go, but I don't think right now he would trade a thing in the world. You got 2 World Championship rings under his belt, and you saw 3 managers go in the Hall of Fame this year, and I got a feeling he's going to be going in at some point too. And the great thing is, as a player to now, he hasn't changed. A lot of guys, when they become managers, they change. Now all of a sudden, I'm the boss, I have to be different. He's the same.
Crawford strikes out to end the inning. We're going to the bottom of the 9th. It looks like Bumgarner is coming back out to try to finish it off.
Six months, 162 games. It's all for this. the National League Wild Card Game on ESPN.
Well, the Pirates fans saluting their team for the season they had, more than for the belief they have that they can come back right now. It ain't over till it's over, but it's 3 outs away from being over here for the Pirates, but still second year in a row in the postseason, and a very appreciative group of fans here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, a lot of long time coming for Pirates fans to see them in the postseason, but this guy here was about as good as you can get tonight.
Doug Glanville chiming in on Twitter. If you don't get him early, you don't get him at all.
You don't get him in the first, you get him in the. You won't get him in the. You will.
He'll get you in the ninth. Yeah. Russell Martin leads it off and hits a fly ball to center field. 1 down. The last shutout in the postseason for the Giants, Tim Lincecum, back in 2010. They're thanking Russell Martin for a great year, and they're hoping that's not the last they'll see of him in a Pirates uniform.
Saw that sign right there. Pay Russell.
He tips his cap.
Yeah, I don't know what will be of this team if he's not back here next year. I mean, he brought a fire and an intensity to this team that they have been lacking.
Starling Marte. The Giants on their way to face the Nationals. Game 1 on Friday. You can hear that in every game of the postseason on ESPN Radio. Dodgers Cardinals beginning Friday as well. The 2 American League Division Series getting started tomorrow. Still chanting Martin's name. Upstairs, a ball and 2 strikes. Bumgarner has not been seriously challenged really at all tonight. Even last inning when they had a couple of men on, runners at first and third, it was as a result of an infield hit and 2 errors. And that has been a huge pitch for him. He's gotten 4 or 5 strikeouts on that breaking ball in the dirt.
Yeah, but that breaking ball in the dirt set up by that great fastball to both sides of the plate, running the cutter in on the righty's hands, and once you speed up the right-handed hitters with that fastball cutter in, you know, you're liable to get the swing and miss. But thing is, Dan, he's been ahead in the count. He's pounding the strike zone ahead in the count, and he's making the Pittsburgh Pirates hitters become far more aggressive.
You talk about guys who are true number ones: Kershaw, Felix Hernandez, Chris Sale, Adam Wainwright, and others. This guy's got to be included as a legit ace,
without
right?
question. And I mean, at such a young age, you know, pitching in the postseason, pitching in World Series games, and now in this wild card game, and just being as dominant as he's been. Yeah, without question.
Doesn't look like he's broken a sweat tonight. Obviously, he's worked hard, but he's been in a rocking chair.
He's upset about some at-bats, I think, more than anything else. I think he did walk someone.
Walked one guy, walked McCutcheon.
Yeah, so he's probably upset about that. But
4 hits, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. Tempo hasn't changed. Expression hasn't changed. And this should do it. Buster Posey puts the squeeze on it, and the San Francisco Giants have defeated the Pittsburgh Pirates and advanced on to the National League Division Series, where they will begin a best-of-5 with the Washington Nationals on Friday. Bumgarner, a 4-hit shutout. Brandon Crawford, a grand slam. Brandon Belt, 3 RBIs. And for Andrew McCutcheon and the Pirates, another good season, an exciting season, but it lasts just 1 game in the postseason, unlike last year, as they are shut out by the Giants here tonight. Bruce Bochy and the Giants on to the next round. And a team you have to respect because of their experience, their pedigree, what they've done in 2012, 2010.
Even year. Watch out for the Giants.
109 pitches for Bumgarner, a 4-hit shutout, 10 strikeouts. Belt drives in 3. Crawford hits a grand slam, and smiles all around as the Giants are headed to the nation's capital to begin a series with the Nationals on Friday. Final score here at PNC Park: the Giants 8 and the Pirates nothing. Stay tuned for more coverage from here in Pittsburgh coming up next on SportsCenter. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For John Kruk, Buster Olney, Tim Kirkjian, and our crew, I'm Dan Shulman saying so long from Pittsburgh. Here are Steve Levy and Kevin Connors.